Just doing this live stream again. I got out of work a little early today and figured I'd goof off on this. Uh, I'll wait a few minutes or wait a few seconds. I watched that Senate hearing on the UAP thing, and I was like, not exactly sure what I think about this, which is unfortunate because I'd like to believe it. I'm a big fan of UFOs, and I have been for a long time, so I'm a little, I guess, bummed out that the government's finally uh, admitting that they have all this stuff. Like, it's weird, right? Because you want to believe, well, I don't know. I want to believe that um, the aliens are like, ever since I was a kid, I was really into aliens. Um, I had T-shirts, all kinds of stuff. Like, I really liked it, and I got into, all the movies back in the days that were on, all the movies that were, God, what Mars Attacks was one. The one with Will Smith. Independence Day was another one. Like all these movies that came out when I was a kid talking about aliens and stuff. Like I really, really enjoyed it. And it's crazy because, now that they're finally talking about them like they're real, I'm like, I'm not so sure, maybe it's the source that it's coming from, because as most of you that know me know, I've always been pretty skeptical of the government and that kind of thing, and just authority in general. But um, I can't help but wonder why they're talking about it now. Is it? I feel like a lot of times when stuff goes mainstream, it's because it's too late and they can't control it. They can't kind of control the narrative, so they do their best. And then that's when the problems arise, because you have some people think one thing about a certain situation, other people think another thing, and now they have to kind of do like the whole control excuse me, all the they have to control the narrative about it. So um it's kind of funny because there's not a lot of people talking about it still, and you would think that that's something kind of important. You have different groups. I don't want to say fringe groups, but maybe they are kind of fringy still. And just because I pay attention to them a little bit, they're more uh they seem to be more prevalent than they are to me. But I watched the Senate hearing, and they have these three guys, these three military pilots, and oh, actually, I don't know if the third guy. There's a guy named Graves. I don't know if he was a pilot or not. I wasn't paying attention to like when they were doing the introduction, but they're talking about these things as if there's something. They're talking about it as if it's something that they don't know what it is, but they do know what it is. And then they're saying like, "Well, I can't answer this question, I can't answer that question," and it's like, yeah. So I guess, but it was weird because there was a lot of times where they could answer questions and they did. So I'm like, okay, if you can't answer this question, it's because whatever question's being asked is, um, their assessment of what you think is probably accurate. The crazy thing was the one guy admitted that there was that we actually had non-human bodies of pilots or whatever. He didn't say they were aliens, but what the fuck else would they be? Um, and then you have the religious types that are like, yeah, duh, aliens have always been around. They're called demons. And it's like, okay, are they only demons? Because where do angels fit into this stuff? I don't know. Then there was one part, one of the ladies was taught, asked the guy if there was like some interdimensional stuff going on, and he said that it was a theory, not that he knew. But I was like, yeah, I think that would be the most, to me, that would be probably the most obvious thing, is that they're like interdimensional because I feel like, we live in a the earth in which we live is there's multiple, not realities, but there's multiple dimensions that are like right on top of each other. I don't know what you'd call that. I'm not a physicist. I don't know how that works, but that would make the most sense to me. Either that or, these aliens are like time machines. That's the other thing I was thinking of because um I mean if they're coming from like light years and light years away, um how do you make that work? I don't know. Maybe they're not real in the sense that they're not real like in our kind of reality, which again goes back to the um possibility that they're some kind of interdimensional beings. Now, I don't know what to do with that though. And the other thing is like I'm sitting there and the politicians that were in like the Senate hearing, they were they mentioned a few times, "Oh, this is bipartisan, this is bipartisan." And one of my things has always been, okay, when things are bipartisan, they're getting ready to screw us. So I'm like, that's kind of weird. And then you have the whole Project Bluebeam thing that was like, I think I first heard of it in like the 90s, like late 90s, back before there was like an actual internet thing. And they were talking about how there'd be like holograms in the sky that um, they would essentially try to build a new world religion, which is kind of weird that there would be. So the Project Bluebeam was like there would be holograms in the sky and that these gods, like, the weird thing is like the gods would be talking from like uh every different religion, and that was the part that I didn't really, but I'm like, okay, obviously if we're going to have all the different religions deities talk to each other at the same time, or talk to us earthlings at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I don't really buy that because we're still, I mean, okay, now there's deities in the sky talking to us, and now there's even more confusion. So I don't know. I never thought that was true, but I did think that they could have some kind of new world religion that they would try to kick off with the holograms in the sky. Then you see the thing in Vegas, that dome or whatever that's called, that's like, fiber optic or whatever. That's kind of crazy to think about that and to see that, and then to look at the possibility that they could be, kind of gearing us towards it. But then it's like, okay, if they're going to do some kind of hologram in the sky that's going to make us believe that there's aliens and alien invasion or deities talking from, whatever religions, I would expect them to keep that kind of quiet. I would expect them to keep that technology quiet. So, you're seeing all um, these drone displays on like 4th of July and stuff like that, or even like these I don't even know, like, it's got to be some kind of fiber optics or something, like on the buildings where they make it look like, there's like a big robot that comes like bursting out of the building and scares all the people that walk by, and it's like just a light show. um so I would think that if they were going to go that route with making people believe that there was an alien invasion through holograms, I would expect them to keep that technology on the down low. I would expect them not to let other people, especially, these entertainment type things, to kind of be shown to people. So that part I'm not 100% sure on. Yeah, I'm trying to work this out because like I know I have some pretty crazy theories about shit, and I know I think about things a little differently than a lot of people, but I really do try to be skeptical, and I really do try to look at things like, okay, how can we explain this? So with that one, but like I said, this is from the 90s, late 90s, I believe, the first time I heard of it anyway. And the other thing was that they were going to start discovering things. There was going to be um like archaeological digs that were going to uncover things that were going to rewrite history, and that would suggest that, what we knew of the history of our species, we would find that there's more to it, and there's, a lot of the stuff is incorrect. Now, I mean, if you look through history, yeah, that happens, right? There's always a period where, like, there was at some point no one knew that the pyramids existed, or Machu Picchu, or like any of these Mayan sites in, Mexico, Guatemala, and all that. So, I mean, yeah, that you could take a guess that there's going to be an archaeological dig at some point that's going to be kind of uh, rewriting history. But then you have to look at the academics, right? Because you have to, if you built your whole career on this is what happened and this is correct, and then something happens where it completely discredits what you've been saying for decades. I would imagine, just because people are fallible, like, you're going to try to defend your point against this new information. So I'm not so sure that's going to work. But it's it's almost at the point, like, okay, that's one side of it. I'm trying to discredit this, and I can see why these things wouldn't make sense, or why they wouldn't do it a certain way. Um, but then it's like, well, what are these things then? You know, and I haven't really heard any of the rest of the world talking about what their instances, but I do know that they're not so quiet about a lot of stuff. I think France has been, like, publicly, like, showing their UFO stuff for a long time. But we're at a point where, I mean, if they are real, then, and they are, like, extraterrestrial, that's going to rewrite a lot of stuff. And I don't know that that's something we could, like, I've always wanted the government to go out and say, like, oh yeah, Area 51, 100% real. Aliens, Roswell, 100% real. But now that it's, like, kind of happening, I'm not so sure that that's what I want, because I'm looking at it like, okay, what are the real world ramifications of this? I was talking to my neighbor the other day. He was talking about how, if they can come here, then they have some kind of uh energy source that, like, that would put everything we have to shame, which would be good. But then you think about, like, how many things society runs on for the sake of running on it, for no other reason than that. Like, the whole oil thing, or even renewable energy. I mean, those things, if aliens are coming here from millions of galaxies away, or billions, or whatever it is, even renewable energy is going to be pointless. So then you have to think, okay, if all this is going to be pointless, if fossil fuels, renewable energy, there's going to be some kind of new source of um, energy. What are they going to fight about now? Because, right now you have all the climate change stuff going on, where some people say it doesn't exist. Other people say, like, I think, what's his name? That old ex-president, vice president, Al Gore. I think by his standards, we should be dead 5 years ago or something like that. So, like, I don't know what's real. I think that there is obviously some kind of thing going on, but I don't know how man-made it is. And I'm sure we don't help. But I mean, if you look through history, there's always been cataclysms and stuff, and why all of a sudden are we believing that they won't happen in our lifetime? Um, so I don't know what to think about that. But you know, back to the aliens, it's like, okay, if we don't have fossil fuel, we don't have renewable energy. Um, I mean, what do we do with all that stuff then, and the whole sections of the economy that runs off of? I don't even know. But then it's like, okay, if they're smart enough to be here, why come here? Why be part of us? They say that, like, aliens started coming around Earth when we started blowing off nuclear bombs, and they were like that the nuclear explosions are what triggered aliens coming here. And I'm like, well, maybe, but also, what about the way I look at it? One of the things that I posed to myself question was, what if it wasn't the actual nuclear energy that is what prompted them to come here, but the pain and suffering of the people that were exposed to the radiation and that got killed? Which would make sense with, like, what do you call it? Angels and demons kind of, you know. I think a lot of the religious people are going to say they're aliens, or they're demons, or they're, entities, or whatever, of that nature. And maybe they're not right, or maybe they're not wrong, but then you're gonna have other people that are like, "Oh, the government's just lying to us, they're trying to trick us again." And it's like, "But what purpose?" I mean, yeah, everyone talks about the one world governments and all this kinda stuff, so I guess you could say that that's what that's about, but I'm not so sure, you know? And then you have AI and everything that goes into it as well, and it's like, yeah, I really don't know what to believe here. I know what I would have liked to believe, if you asked me 10 years ago, but now that it's sitting in front of me, I'm like, "Hey." And then you have that Elizondo guy, I mean, he was a Fed, so it could very well be that they are trying to do something, he worked for government and, like, there's a lot of he had some secret alien program or something like that, and, like, okay, all of a sudden, he wants to worry about the Constitution of the United States now that I don't know, man, I don't know what to believe. My my opinion, typically, in these situations is that, um, if both parties agree on something, it's not for the better of us, it's for the better of, the elite, and I think it's been that way for quite a time, so that makes me skeptical. Um, and then obviously, okay, this is like, what was that, the '40s that happened? So 60, so, that's like 80 years ago that all this happened? They've been covering up for that long? I don't know. I mean, yeah, maybe, but for what reason? I know in the '60s, the Air Force was always saying that, "Oh, no, there's no such thing as UFOs," and they would say that, "Oh, yeah, there was this UFO," and then they would say, "Well, no, it was swamp gas, or it was a weather balloon, or it was whatever." Well, and then, we get a Chinese weather balloon, and you're like, "Wow, okay, so now they're pushing aliens on us." It's like, "Okay, we saw these weather balloons," and then all these questions arise, is like, how can we how did it take us this long? No one knew about these weather balloons before the Chinese one came over our airspace. I mean, maybe they did, but they weren't talking about it. Again, they obviously knew that this stuff was happening. Why are they just telling us now? Because they can't control the information that's coming out, or is it that they're trying to create a narrative, or that they're trying to play smoke and mirrors, or that they really do want to, notify us, of something? I also think that there's no coincidence that they're talking about it right now with all the stuff that's going on over, in Eastern Europe. I'm not gonna name 2 countries that's it, 'cause I don't know what the community standards are, but, it's kind of fishy that that's going on while they're doing the medical stuff over the last few years. And they're talking about climate change, and so it's like, man, there's all this stuff going on, and, um, are they trying to create a new narrative? Now, one of the things that is a big, um I think the last time I was talking about it, a big red flag for me is that we don't have, because we're living in, like, a global society, whether or not you like it, that's at this point, that's kinda what it is, we do have our sovereign nations and everything, but, um, we can stay sovereign with the corporations working as they do, like, there's really no it's kind of like, I don't know, sovereign in name only, I guess, that these corporations are worldwide and they don't apply it, they don't have the same laws and restrictions that an average citizen would, or that even countries do, so, I mean, I think it's safe to say at this point we are living in, I don't wanna say a one world government, but it's definitely a global, civilization or whatever at this point, and, that begs the question then, like, well, what do we do about the common myth, um, the that civilizations throughout history have had? We don't have one right now. There's these people, that people. I think I said that on the last show I did, where there's no real, common myth, no origin story for all of us, and when there's no origin story, we kinda see what we're getting here. We're getting people fighting over what the origin story is, so I'm wondering if maybe the government coming out with all this stuff is to create, like, a new modern origin story, um, which I think would make sense with the way that they're doing it, like, Senate hearing after complete silence and denial for 80 years? Whatever. I don't believe you. but I'd like to believe you. That's the messed up thing. So this is kind of the problem that I'm having. I wanna believe it, but I don't. Um, I guess they could be aliens, they could be interdimensional beings, they could be demons, they could be angels. It's funny because all the religious people that I see talking about the fact that they're demons, "Yeah, we've known about them forever, they're called demons." It's like, okay, well, where do angels fit in this? Are aliens why are aliens only evil is kinda my question. Um, and then you go back to all the ancient civilizations that talk about the gods coming from the skies and everything, and you're like, "Well, maybe that's what we're seeing." And if that is the case, if these old gods were aliens, um, it doesn't take away from the fact that they had, um, influence on society. It's just we didn't understand that, we didn't have technology, we didn't, know anything, I guess, back then, so, yeah, I think gods would be the appropriate thing to call them. Uh, and I guess that would be like, God of the Bible too, right? How do we know? And if God of the Bible does turn out to be an alien, does that change anything? I don't think so. I mean, it does in insofar as, uh, I guess he wouldn't be omnipresent and, all that stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, he couldn't have been the creator. Very well could have been. I don't know. So that's my thoughts on that. I don't know what to think, I really don't. I'm hearing radio silence from large majority of people. I don't know how this isn't as big a deal as it is in my head. It's like, wait, they're saying that they're real now, and no one's really talking about it? And if they do, they're joking about it? Which, I mean, when you joke about stuff, a lot of times that hides the fact that you're uncomfortable or that you're scared or whatever, so I guess that could be the case too, but I don't know. These are things I think about. What does it all mean? Oh, check this out. So I'm thinking about one of the things like, these are gonna be tests for a while. I will do actual episodes at some point, but I'm just kinda goofing off right now and getting used to this stuff, and I figured who better to do that than my, Facebook friends. But check this out. I made this little intro music the other day. I'll play that for you. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but here it is. It'd be cool if you can hear it. So I figured this would be, like, my intro music that I would just kinda talk over every episode and just, like, introduce the show and what the topic is gonna be. I don't know if you can hear it or not. I'll have to see when I play back, but this is why I'm doing these kinds of things because I want to kinda live stream and figure it out amongst people I like and know and trust. Listen, boom, and that's what you say, "Oh, blah, 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 John," whatever I say. Um, but yeah, so that's the 2 things. I got that going. I'm gonna be working on I got some artwork done a few months ago. I kinda changed the direction of how I wanted to do it, so I don't how I wanted to do this. So I wanted to call it Spiritual Ronin, which is my Twitter handle, and then talk about, the different religions and aspects of it and how they all intertwine or how they disagree with each other and all that, but I didn't wanna kind of there's so many things that I'm interested in, I didn't wanna just limit myself to those, so it's not gonna be a Spiritual Ronin podcast. I think I'm gonna still go with, Mind Your Business with John Hartman, which was what my, YouTube channel was or is, I guess. So there's that. So I got the music, which I gotta figure out how to, like, embed or whatever, and then I have some artwork and stuff. I wanna do, like, an little intro video potentially, and I have a couple people I wanna talk to about certain things, so I just have to schedule with them, and then figure out how to put them on here with me. Um, but yeah, this one's just gonna be a little probably 20 minutes shorter than the last one I did. I don't know that I'm excuse me. I don't know that I'm going to keep this one up or not. This is more for practice for me for now. I wanna actually, put this on iTunes and all that stuff and get my YouTube channel going again. Um, But yeah, that's what I think about aliens. I think they could be real. I want them to be real, but I'm not so sure that they are. And, yeah, I guess we'll leave it at that today. Thanks for watching.